You didn't buy anything today. You didn't walk into a store. You didn't swipe a card at a register. You didn't even think about spending money. But money left your account anyway. Maybe $12. Maybe $40. Maybe, if you're like the average American household, right now, somewhere north of $270. Gone. Silently. On a Tuesday. While you were doing something else entirely. This is not a glitch. This is not fraud. This is the system working exactly as it was designed. And the most unsettling part? You agreed to all of it. The setup. Why this matters right now. We're living through the greatest transfer of wealth in consumer history that nobody is talking about. Not through taxes, not through inflation, though that's doing its part. Through subscriptions. The subscription economy, that's the actual name they use for it, crossed $1 trillion globally in 2022. It's on pace to hit $1.5 trillion by 2025. Companies that used to sell you a product once are now selling you access to that product every single month, forever. And they're not doing it because it's more convenient for you. They're doing it because it is wildly, almost embarrassingly, more profitable for them. Here's a number that should stop you cold. McKinsey found that subscription businesses grow revenues roughly 5 times faster than the S&P 500 companies. 5 times. And the reason is deceptively simple. They don't need to win you over every time you make a purchase. They only need to win you over once. After that, your inertia does the rest of the work for them. That's the trap. Not some elaborate scheme. Not some conspiracy. Just a quiet, perfectly legal exploitation of the most human thing about you. The fact that you forget, you get comfortable, and you don't like making decisions. Let's go back to the beginning. How it started. The origin of the model. The subscription model is not new. Newspapers have been charging monthly since the 1600s. Book clubs ran on it for decades. But those were honest arrangements. You got the newspaper. You knew you were paying for the newspaper. What changed was software. In the early 2000s, a company called Salesforce made a radical decision. Instead of selling their software to businesses as a one-time product, they would rent access to it on a monthly basis. Everyone in the industry said they were insane. The model proved them catastrophically wrong. The reason it worked was predictability. Instead of hoping customers renewed a license every year or two, Salesforce collected revenue every single month. Automatically, without friction. Wall Street noticed. Investors started valuing subscription revenue at a premium, sometimes 3 to 5 times higher than regular one-time revenue. Why? Because it's recurring, it's reliable, it compounds. And then tech companies of every shape and size looked at what Salesforce had done, and they had a very simple thought. Why are we selling anything outright ever? Adobe killed the disk. Microsoft killed the box. Newspapers put up paywalls. Gyms locked their best classes behind tiers. Video games introduced season passes. Car companies started testing subscriptions for heated seats. Heated seats that you already physically own. This is how it accelerates. The mechanics. How it actually works on you. Now here's where the psychology gets interesting. When you buy something outright, there is a moment of what researchers call the pain of paying. Your brain registers the loss. You feel it. That's why handing over cash feels worse than swiping a card. And why swiping a card feels worse than one-click checkout. Subscriptions are engineered to eliminate this pain almost entirely. The charge is small. It's periodic. It happens in the background. It's bundled with convenience. And most critically, it's never attached to a single moment of conscious choice. You don't decide to pay for Netflix on the 15th of every month. You just decided once, probably 2 years ago, when they offered you a free trial, and now it happens automatically. Every month, forever, until you specifically choose to stop. And stopping, as it turns out, is hard. Not because of any one thing. Because of several small things stacked on top of each other, each one designed by an expert. The cancellation button is buried 3 menus deep. The cancellation page offers you a pause option, then a discounted rate. Then it asks you if you're sure. Then it tells you what you'll lose. Then it asks if someone else in your household uses it. Then it confirms. Then it sends you an email hoping you'll reconsider. That process is not accidental. There are entire teams of behavioral designers whose only job is to make cancellation feel like more trouble than it's worth. They are very good at their jobs. The uncomfortable math. Let's talk numbers, because this is where the abstraction becomes real. The average American household currently subscribes to, and this is from a 2023 study by Forbes and C+R Research, approximately 24 subscription services. 24. The average person believes they subscribe to about 9. That gap, that 15 service gap between what people think they pay for and what they actually pay for, is not an accident. It's the product. At an average of $15 per subscription, 24 services costs you $360 a month. That's $4,320 per year. On recurring charges, you barely register. Here's the compounding problem. If you invested that same $4,300 annually at a 7% average market return, you'd have, after 10 years, just over $60,000. After 20 years, it's closer to $180,000. After 30, you're looking at nearly $500,000 from subscriptions that you forgot you had. And there's another layer to this. Most subscriptions raise their prices. Netflix has raised its prices 11 times since 2010. Spotify raised prices across multiple markets in 2023. The streaming service you locked in at $8 3 years ago is now $13. And because the raise happens quietly in an email you skimmed, you never made a fresh decision about whether it was still worth it. This is called subscription creep, and it's one of the most quietly effective financial erosion mechanisms ever devised. The hype versus the reality. Now, let's be fair for a moment, because subscriptions are not entirely a scam. Netflix genuinely changed entertainment. Spotify made music discovery feel magical. Microsoft 365 actually does serve a lot of people well. Cloud storage solved a real problem. There are subscriptions that add genuine, measurable value to people's lives. But here is the distinction that the industry never wants you to draw. The problem is not that subscriptions exist. The problem is that the model's profitability depends entirely on you paying for things you don't use. That is not a cynical interpretation. It is a financial fact. A gym's entire business model collapses if everyone who has a membership actually shows up. Subscription box companies bank on the months you forget to cancel before the shipment goes out. Software companies know that a percentage of seats in every corporate license go completely unused. Streaming services know that large portions of their subscriber base went dormant after the first 3 months. The ideal customer, from a subscription business's perspective, is someone who signed up, uses the service occasionally enough to feel guilty about canceling, but not frequently enough to extract full value from the cost. Most of us, most of the time, are that customer. The corporate side. Why they will never stop. When a company converts its revenue to subscriptions, something interesting happens to its stock price. It goes up, not because the company is suddenly more profitable in the short term, but because investors value predictable future revenue. A company with 1 million subscribers paying $10 a month is worth fundamentally more to Wall Street than a company with 1 million customers who each bought something once. This creates a perverse incentive loop. The moment a company converts to a subscription model, it is rewarded by the market. Its executive stock options increase in value. Pressure to grow subscriber counts becomes the primary metric that everything else is measured against. And here is the consequence that nobody talks about. Once a company is subscription first, quality improvements become less urgent. You don't need to impress the customer to get the next sale. You need to avoid upsetting them enough to cancel. There's a subtle but enormous difference between those two things. Improving is expensive. Retaining is cheap. This is why so many software products feel like they stopped getting meaningfully better after their subscription conversion. The incentive structure no longer rewards wow. This new feature changed everything. It rewards you didn't notice anything changed and you didn't cancel. The bigger picture. What this does to society. Zoom out. What happens to an economy where an increasing percentage of consumer spending is locked into recurring obligations rather than active choices? First, discretionary spending becomes less discretionary. A larger share of your paycheck is spoken for before you even think about how to spend it. This reduces your financial flexibility and, over time, your ability to respond to unexpected costs. Second, it concentrates market power. When switching costs are high, whether because of contracts, data lock-in, or simply the friction of moving, dominant players can raise prices with limited fear of losing customers. This is not competition. It's inertia dressed up as loyalty. Third, it changes the relationship between companies and consumers in a fundamental way. You are no longer a buyer. You are a subscriber. You don't own what you're using. You have access. As long as you keep paying under terms the company can change, with features the company can remove, on a platform the company can shut down. Adobe once offered Photoshop as a product you could buy and keep. In 2013, they switched entirely to a subscription model and eventually removed the option to purchase outright. Users who had paid for the software for 20 years found that their ability to keep using it was now contingent on a monthly payment. Forever. This is the direction the entire economy is slowly moving toward. The quiet irony. Here is the irony that sits underneath all of this. We live in the most financially informed era in human history. There are more personal finance books, podcasts, YouTube channels, and apps than ever before. More people know what compound interest is. More people understand the concept of an emergency fund. More people are tracking their budgets in apps that they pay a subscription for. And yet, the subscription economy is growing faster than at any point in its history. Subscription fatigue, a term that is now in mainstream use, has not meaningfully slowed the industry. Companies launch new subscription products faster than consumers cancel old ones. The information isn't the problem. The design is. These products are built by some of the sharpest behavioral scientists, product designers, and data analysts in the world. They know, with extraordinary precision, the exact moment to offer you a discount when you're about to cancel. They know which users are high risk for churn. They know that removing the annual plan option and showing only the monthly price makes the service seem more affordable even when it costs more annually. You are not fighting a bad habit. You are fighting a system. The close. The unresolved question. So where does that leave you? You could audit your subscriptions tonight. Cancel the ones you forgot about. Run the math. Feel briefly virtuous. And statistically 3 months from now, you'll have quietly resubscribed to something new because the onboarding is always frictionless. The free trial is always appealing, and the payment is always small enough that it doesn't feel like a real decision, because it was designed not to feel like one. The deeper question, the one that lingers, is this. At what point does a system that profits specifically from your lack of attention become something we should collectively decide to regulate differently? At what point does buried cancellation design become consumer harm? At what point does subscription creep across an entire population become a macroeconomic problem worth naming? A few regulators are beginning to ask. The FTC in the United States issued guidelines in 2023 targeting negative option marketing, the technical term for charges that continue until you actively stop them. The European Union has pushed for clearer cancellation requirements. small moves in a very large system. But for now, the model works enormously well. The money moves quietly on schedule, from millions of accounts to a handful of platforms, while people sleep, while people work, while people don't think about it. Which is, of course, the whole idea.